Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Welcome to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. And Mark has impacted the quality of a lot of folks' lives right here in the Tucson area. Mark, always a pleasure to be with you and great to be together for another show.
Ron, always happy to be here and having a conversation with you as well.
520-333-7601. If you haven't memorized that number already, if you're not a regular listener, then write it down, and then you'll have no problem remembering it. 520-333-7601. You can call or text, and at any time during the show, you can go ahead and call that number if you like. You don't have to wait until the end. 520-333-7601. Call or text. Just leave your contact information, and then you can come in and have a conversation about your situation. And we're going to lead off today's show by talking about defense mechanisms. Mark, sometimes people say they don't want to retire, and sometimes they really mean it. Other times it's just a defense mechanism to compensate for the fact that they feel like they really can't retire. So I thought we could explore some of the possible meanings behind the statement, I don't want to retire. Some folks might say to you, I love my career. Could that perhaps have a hidden meaning there?
It can, but then I think also it can be true. I mean, what do they say? If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
And I truly, the way that I interact with my clients and way we're able to help people and the type of clients that I work with, I really enjoy what I do. And I probably would never fully walk away and fully retire. Yeah, I'd probably slow down at some point, but I have no intentions of retiring because I do truly enjoy what I do. As long as my mind is still there. But, for a lot of people, hopefully they do love their career. But on the other hand, we do have people that don't enjoy what they do. And some people, maybe they're not doing what they want to be doing or should be doing. And so they're using that kind of as an excuse, kind of what you alluded to, Ron. But, there are people that haven't, saved or planned or done any of those sorts of things. And the reality is maybe they can't retire or have the type of retirement that they want because they haven't done a good job of saving and investing. Mm-hmm. And so the big problem with that, of course, is what if you physically can't work? Even though your plan was to work, what if physically you're no longer able to work and you haven't saved any money? Then how do you pay for your expenses? How do you live?
And perhaps this person is saying, I love my career, just to kind of cover up, to keep from being embarrassed that they really haven't done a good job preparing, just to make themselves look good to other people. How about the people who say, I'd be bored if I retired?
And that could be the case too. I mean, retiring doesn't mean, retiring and just quitting your job and sitting on the couch and watching TV all day. You've got to have a plan. And I've said this before, I could put a plan together for your money, but you need to put a plan together for your time. And so with that being said, you've got to have a plan of what you're going to do in retirement, whether that's playing golf, tennis, traveling, spending time with grandkids and children, whatever it might be. You need to have, you need to keep your body and mind active. And for some people, if you don't have a lot of hobbies and other interests, maybe slowing down or continuing to work, doing something what you've been doing at a slower pace, or maybe even doing something totally different is what the plan is. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that.
Well, if you would like a financial physical, Mark Silverman can put your portfolio through a financial physical, just like you would go to the doctor for an annual physical on your body. Get your portfolio looked at, and Mark Silverman can do that. Call or text this number, 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601, and you can arrange a time to come in and talk with Mark Silverman face-to-face about your situation. And we're all different. There is no cookie-cutter solution. Mark can't give advice that's going to apply to everybody out there because everybody's situation is unique. Again, that number to call to make that conversation happen is 520-333-7601. You can call or text. There are other people, Mark, who say, I don't have enough money to retire. Well, maybe they're actually shooting straight about that one, but then again, maybe not.
And some people don't quite even know. That's why we take a planning-based approach. That's why when people come in and we sit down and figure out if they're already retired, it's a little bit easier because we know kind of what they might be spending and what they might be doing in retirement. But if they are planning for retirement, let's say maybe they're 5 or 10 years out, we can sit down and figure out how much they might be spending in retirement, do some projections, some assumptions of how much they might need, and run that out for their life expectancy. And if they're married, their and their spouse's life expectancy, to make sure that they do have enough money for, living expenses, health care, travel, whatever it is that they want to do in retirement. And so we can tell them exactly, are you on track? Or are you not on track? Are you going to run out of money? Or are you not going to run out of money? And actually show them and demonstrate that, looking at inflation, looking at all these different things that most people know about, but they don't really know what that looks like or how to put all these numbers and all these different pieces of the puzzle together. And that's why it's so important. And the crucial part of what we do is really building a financial plan so that we can tell you yes or no, or what is possible, what's not possible, or are you on track or are you not on track.
We're talking about defense mechanisms on today's edition of Saving with Silverman. There are other folks out there, Mark, who say, I'm not confident enough in my portfolio or my plan or my advisor to just walk away from work right now. And could that perhaps be, covering up for something else?
Well, I think it is a scary thing. We've gone through it with so many people that, when you're getting a paycheck coming in and you're used to getting a paycheck, there's a certain level of comfort with that. When you quit your job and you're not planning on going back to work, you've got to take all of that money. You're going from what we call an accumulation phase to a distribution phase. So you're taking all of that money that you've saved and you're turning that into income to last you, and if you're married, you and your spouse's life. And so it is a scary thing because you need to have money coming in, you need cash flow. And how are you going to get the cash flow? And most people don't know how to do that, or they don't take in consideration inflation and what the cost of healthcare might be and other expenses and things that they might want to do in retirement. They don't take those things into consideration. And it's important that you have an idea as far as what you may be spending in retirement or what you already are spending in retirement if you're already retired, and then being able to project that out to whatever your life expectancy is so we know if you're going to run out of money or not. And so when we build a plan for people and they go to retirement, we have a plan, we have a strategy. They know exactly where they stand, and making sure that if they want to go back to work, great, but it's called a work optional lifestyle, working because they want to, not because they have to. And so it's a great feeling knowing that you've done the planning and you've done all the preparations and you've done everything right to make sure that you're going to have the type of retirement that you've always envisioned.
Mark, I know that there's someone out there sitting and listening to the show right now, and they're saying, gee, I've been listening to the show for a while. What Mark Silverman says makes a lot of sense, and it's about time that I got off the couch and I went ahead and made that phone call and had a conversation with Mark Silverman. And what happens when they come into your office?
Sure, Ron, and this is the last quarter of the year here. This year, at least for us, it seems like it's gone by so fast. So, why keep procrastinating? So whether you're a first-time listener to the show, as Ron said, or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And so you actually meet with me. I don't pawn you off on somebody else. I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And I can tell you, if you're working with somebody from the bank or a brokerage firm, they do not have a fiduciary responsibility on all of your assets. As part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets, and we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So, this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. You can call that number, or you can shoot a text to that number. Either way, whatever you're more comfortable doing, and that'll put you in touch with Silverman and Associates. 520-333-7601. 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman, certified financial planner, professional, and of course the managing member, the founder, in fact, of Silverman and Associates in Tucson. We'll have more coming up on today's show after this quick timeout.
When you reflect on your life, what would you like to see as your fondest memories? Summers at your favorite vacation spot? Ice cream with the grandkids after their first t-ball game? Maybe it was your great adventure across the world or volunteering with a local nonprofit. Of course, those memories are still in the future, although they're not as far away as you might think. Be sure you have a financial plan to make them happen. Don't find yourself worrying while enjoying that ice cream. Peace of mind is attainable in your retirement. With the proper planning, you can secure a meaningful retirement. At Silverman and Associates, we can help you make those dreams a reality. Schedule your visit with our team today. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. We want to make memories with you. Get started by calling or texting 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Picture this. Your financial statements have come in the mail. What's going through your head as you open them up? Maybe all that financial jargon is flustering. Maybe the numbers are confusing, or maybe those red arrows are leaving you in a funk. Don't base your future on a monthly letter. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman. Learn what true financial planning really looks like.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. This is Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman, certified financial planner professional, founder and managing member of Silverman and Associates. And the number to call to get in touch with Mark is 520-333-7601. You can call or text, whatever you're more comfortable with, 520-333-7601. It is time for a story, and Mark's always good for at least one story every week. And on Story Time today, Mark, tell us about the worst financial product that you've ever found in someone's portfolio when they came in to visit you for the very first time.
There's a couple products I really don't care for. I'd probably have to say one of the worst, in my opinion, is a variable annuity. I've just never felt that it's benefited the client more than it has the advisor or person that sold them that product. And I think what's second would be a non-traded REIT. I think those are horrible as well. So, probably the variable annuities, which, and I'm not saying all annuities are bad, but certainly I think variable annuities are. They're very expensive. It's one of the most expensive products you can buy. The average fees are somewhere between 2.5% to 4% per year. And as I explain that to people when they come into the office, they said, I had no idea. I said, of course you didn't, because if you did, you never would have purchased it. And so, it has the risk of the market, which the risk is not bad, but you have to overcome that fee just to break even. So if the market takes a hit and you lose 30% and you're paying 4% in fees, you lose 34%. And so, in my opinion, they're one of the worst investment vehicles you can purchase, certainly for the price and everything else. If you're going to be in the market, be in the market. Don't use an annuity to get into the market, in my opinion. So
oftentimes it benefits the person who sold it to you, but not you,
Exactly. And so, they're mainly sold by, banks and brokerage firms. That's who typically sell those. And, they make more money by selling those than if they were just to sell you some mutual funds. And mutual funds are expensive on their own. When you have them in a variable annuity, it's even more expensive. So, but a lot of people don't understand those things when they're sold a bill of goods. They don't really understand them. And sometimes they never understand them. If they come into the office, we'll explain them and show them how they work. And most people, sometimes we can get out of them, sometimes you can't. It just depends on when you purchased it, what the surrender charges are and that sort of thing. You don't want to be in a worse position by getting out of it than you would be if you just hold on to it until you can get out of it.
Good time to point out the fact that Mark Silverman is a fiduciary. That means he always has your best interest at heart. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. And again, if you'd like to get in touch, if you'd like to arrange a time to come in and have a conversation with Mark Silverman about your portfolio, maybe you have someone you're working with now and you just like a second opinion. Maybe you don't have a plan, and Mark can help you put one together. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text. 520-333-7601 is that number. There's more coming up after this time out.
At Silverman and Associates, we believe you deserve a financial plan that's customized to your situation. That's because no one strategy could possibly fit your unique needs and goals. From strategizing to execution, our goal is to give you undivided attention. Come in for a visit today and learn what it looks like to put your retirement dreams into action. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
If you've ever asked yourself what a well-balanced financial portfolio looks like, keep listening to Saving with Silverman, and you'll find out.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with the inimitable Mark Silverman, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates. Thanks for listening to the show today. And we give this number a lot during the show, and it's so important because nothing really happens to deal specifically with your financial situation until you call this number. Just reach out and get in touch. Call or text 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. And that'll put you in touch with Mark Silverman. You can arrange a time to come in and have a conversation, get the financial physical. Mark Silverman is the guy who has your best interests at heart. 520-333-7601. Call that number or send a text to that number and you'll see what we mean. We're going to talk about mutual funds on today's show. Mutual funds have long been the most popular way for people to invest, but that landscaping is changing. So let's discuss, first of all, Mark, what percentage of your clients own mutual funds in one form or another when they first came in to see you?
That's a good question, Ron. I would say most people, I don't know what the percentage is, but whether somebody's doing it on their own, they're typically using mutual funds. And if they're working with another advisor, they're typically using loaded mutual funds, which is even worse. Mutual funds, when I started in this business over 20 years ago, that's what we used was mutual funds. Nowadays, and we have the ability to use mutual funds if that's what people want, but there's much better options. I think I probably mentioned this before, but I prefer using ETF, exchange traded funds. The fees are about 80 to 90% less than the typical mutual fund, and they're more transparent. They're more tax efficient. There's so many benefits of using ETFs than mutual funds, and there's a lot of articles out there. If you just Google mutual funds versus ETFs, you could read about it yourself. But we tend to use either individual securities or ETFs in our practice. But I would have to say that most of the people coming in own at least majority or at least some of their portfolios in mutual funds. And there's just better ways out there, in my opinion, that most people aren't aware of.
Mark, I know that a lot of what you do involves educating your clients and folks who come in to see you. Let's do a little educating right now. Explain expense ratios in mutual funds, if you would. What is that and why is it important to understand?
Sure. So the expense ratio is what the underlying costs are of the fund each and every year. And so the average mutual fund, let's say, is 1%, which is probably an average. There might be some that are more expensive and some that are less expensive. It depends on the fund family and that sort of thing. But those are taken off the top. So let's say a fund does 7%, but it has 1% in fees. You just get a return of 6%. So you never see these fees. These fees are disclosed in the prospectus, which nobody reads, but these are taken off the top. So it's a fee that nobody sees. With an ETF, you're probably looking at about 80 to 90% less in fees. So you're looking, instead of 1%, you might be looking at 1/10 of 1%, or 1/20, or 2/10 of 1%, somewhere in that range, and some could even be less than that. So there's just a lot of benefits, but expense ratios, most people don't get caught up with, because it's not always about what the expenses are. It's not what you pay, it's what you get. So as long as you're getting value from it, but like I said, in all cases, in my opinion, I think you're way better off using an ETF than you are a mutual fund. But most advisors won't tell you that because they get revenue off of mutual funds. We don't. We're fee-based. We don't get any mutual fund revenue expense from expense ratios or anything like that, where your typical bank and brokerage people will.
Okay, another bit of educating here, if you don't mind. Explain loaded mutual funds. What do front load, back load, and no load mean?
So loaded funds are ones that are typically sold by banks and brokers. They're not your Fidelity or Vanguard, your the no load funds. But what they are is you pay a certain percentage up front that comes off the top. That's a front end load. There's some back end loads. Those aren't as popular anymore, not as round as much anymore, is where you don't pay anything to get in, but they have a higher expense ratio. There's some ones that are called they're kind of level load funds, and basically you pay 1 point to get into it, a expense ratio or a load to get into it of 1%, and then it has a higher expense ratio as well. I personally would not buy a loaded mutual fund, and I can tell you when I started in this business, that's all we did is sell loaded mutual funds, but things have changed for the better, in my opinion, for clients. And so buying a loaded mutual fund, I don't think makes any sense these days. Like I said before, you could buy no load fund. I would prefer to buy a no load fund than I would a loaded fund. And on top of that, I would buy a ETF before I'd buy a no load fund on top of that as well. So there's lots of different things. It can be confusing. There's A shares, B shares, C shares. Most people, when they come into the office, I'll try to explain that to them. And that should have been explained to them when they purchased these funds from their other advisor that sold them to them. But most people are unaware of how it even works or how the fees are even calculated. So we try to explain things to people, and most people should know the way they work since they've already purchased them. But it's important that you do understand how those are calculated so you can understand what you're paying, so you can understand if you're receiving the value that you're paying for.
520-333-7601 is a very important phone number, 520-333-7601. That is your Saving with Silverman number. You can call that number or text it and arrange a time to come in and have a conversation with Mark Silverman, the guy who does this radio show every single week, 520-333-7601. Mark, of course, the founder of Silverman and Associates in Tucson, but he has folks who come in all the time from all over southern Arizona. Would love to help you as well. He's helped so many individuals and couples and families out there with their retirement planning and can certainly do the same for you. We're talking about mutual funds on today's show. And Mark, what are some of the tax issues that mutual funds can create?
Sure. So, if you own mutual funds in your IRA, your 401k, your Roth IRA, those things, that's okay. I mean, there's still better ways than that, but tax-wise, that's not a horrible issue. But if you own mutual funds outside of that into taxable accounts, trust accounts, joint accounts, single accounts, those sorts of things, the problem is mutual funds are horribly tax inefficient. And what I mean by that is mutual funds declare capital gains and dividends every quarter, whether you're taking the money out or not. And so if you're just holding on to a mutual fund, you're going to keep paying those capital gains and dividends as they declare them. So mutual funds, the way that they're designed, are horribly tax inefficient. ETFs, on the other hand, are way more tax efficient because at the end of the day, it's not what you make, it's what you make after fees and taxes. And so, the tax aspect of your investing is an important piece, and most advisors don't even talk about that. They're just looking at the investment piece. They don't look at the tax piece, which I think is a big mistake. So that's why you want somebody that can look at the whole picture.
All right, and one more question in regards to mutual funds today, Mark. Should mutual funds be eliminated altogether? How often, if at all, do you incorporate mutual funds into your clients' portfolios these days?
Yeah, I don't use a lot of mutual funds. We have the ability to use them. Again, my preference is using individual securities or ETFs. If somebody really wants mutual funds, we will use them. But most of the time, we're strictly using individual securities and ETFs. It's less expensive. And since I'm not making that revenue, the more the client makes, the better off they are, the better off we are, because we're on the same side of the table as the client. That's how we align ourselves as being a fiduciary. And then also part of that also is, they're more tax efficient. And so that helps as well. And there's more transparency. That's the other big thing with ETFs over mutual funds. You know exactly what you own in there at all times, which makes it easier to manage.
Well, Mark, I know that we have a lot of people who listen to the show every single week. Maybe we have some new folks who are tuning in for the first time today. Who knows? If you are, we're certainly glad to have you. And if someone would like to call that number and get in touch with you, what can they expect when they come into your office?
Sure. Just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're a do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through this process we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? We just talked about that with mutual funds. If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we are going to address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one local here on the radio in Tucson, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone, however our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601 is your number to call or text. 520-333-7601. That puts you in touch with Silverman and Associates. Mark Silverman, of course, certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates in Tucson. And folks from all over southern Arizona have benefited from Mark Silverman's experience and expertise. Again, that number is 520-333-7601. You can get the financial physical. There's no obligation and no cost at all when you make that phone call or send that text, 520-333-7601. It's important to make sure you have a plan, a good plan in place for your retirement years. You want to be able to reward yourself with the fruits of your labor. You've been working hard for so many years, and in retirement, you should have peace of mind, and Mark Silverman can help you achieve that. That's what it's all about. You're listening to Saving with Silverman, and there's more coming up on today's show.
Planning for retirement shouldn't be a mystery. So why is it so easy to get bogged down with financial terms and advisors who try to offer you a sales pitch? At Silverman and Associates, Mark Silverman and his team take pride in looking after their clients' best interests. They strive to educate you about the financial world. If you want a customized financial plan that's unique to your goals, schedule a visit with the team today. Schedule a complimentary review of your situation. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You finished school and worked hard to get your first job. You told yourself you'd save for retirement, but that old jalopy you bought when you were 16 broke down, so you bought a new one. You started to save, and soon you bought your first home. Then came pets, kids, and your world changed some more. You worked hard to provide for your family. You made sure your kids got a good education. You might be sending them to school right now, or maybe it's the grandkids' turn. And of course, you're now making sure your parents are looked after. Through the years you lovingly sacrificed for your family, now it's time to take care of you. Love others well by taking care of yourself. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman to discover how to build a financial plan that'll continue providing for you and the ones you love for years to come.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman. I'm Ryan Stutz, tagging along for an hour here. Mark's number is 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. May seem like we give you that number a lot, and we certainly do because it's so important. That is the way to call and get in touch, or text and get in touch with Silverman and Associates and make that conversation happen. I'm talking about a conversation face-to-face with Mark Silverman about your portfolio and about your retirement and about your life. 520-333-7601. Again, call or text. Let's talk about debt and retirement planning. Mark, tell us about a client of yours who was able to create substantial wealth because they didn't have any debt.
You know, a lot of our clients are like that. You know, they live within their means. Not to say that you can't have a good retirement if you don't, but the ones that are most successful are the ones that have the money before they purchase something, which is kind of a novel concept. If our country followed that sort of motto, we'd probably be in a different position right now.
Yeah.
But with that being said, you know, saving is important. If you're gonna have the type of retirement that you want, you've got to put some money away. And the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be because you have to make up for time. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't really start until it's later in life. Maybe it's age 50 and they say, well, I want to retire at 65. So they get started and you have to put more money away. And I'm not saying it's impossible to do, but you have to be more aggressive with your saving. And unfortunately, a lot of people spend as much as they make, and some people spend even more than they make, which is going to be a problem. And so those people aren't going to find themselves in a position to have the type of retirement or are able to retire in the way that they want to, or in being able to maintain the lifestyle that they've kind of adapted to. And so I think it's important, the people that live within their means, that have maybe got on a routine of starting to save. So if you're younger, my advice is to start young and start putting money away and increase it as much as you can. I've never had somebody that said, well, I saved too much money. We have too much now. But I've had a lot of people that say, oh, I wish I would have started earlier. And so if you're listening to this show and you're younger, or if you have kids that are younger, encourage them to start saving now. It's going to make life a lot easier. And if the people that are relying too heavily on the government, i.e. Social Security and those sorts of things, are going to have problems down the road, unfortunately. You've got to be relying on just yourself and making sure that you're putting enough money away for you and your family.
When you're talking about money, oftentimes you hear folks talk about good debt. Do you believe there's such a thing as good debt?
Yeah, I mean, there's good debt versus bad debt. You know, the bad debt would be like credit cards, you know, high interest rates. You can't deduct the interest. It's the worst debt you can have. So you want to pay those things off as soon as possible. And if you can't, you know, if you can move them to deals where you can get 0% for a year here or there and able to play that game. But, you know, the ultimate goal is to pay those things off as quickly as possible. But, you know, having a mortgage, you know, we do have clients that retire with a mortgage. We have clients that retire without a mortgage. It just depends on the situation. If they do have a mortgage, we're going to have to just create the cash flow to keep up with servicing that debt. But you do get the deduction of the interest. So there is something there. So, and usually the rates are a lot lower than they would be like on a credit card. And so with that being said, you know, that debt could be considered, I don't know if it's good debt, but it's better than a credit card debt and those sorts of things.
520-333-7601 is your number to call or text to get in touch with Mark's office. 520-333-7601. Mark, of course, can be reached there. You can leave your contact information. And first part of the week, you'll be able to arrange a time to come in and have a conversation. We're talking about debt and retirement planning. Mark, does someone need to be debt-free before they retire?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's all about, like I mentioned earlier, it's all about cash flow. So we have clients that we do plans for where, you know, maybe they've paid all their debts off. And in some cases, maybe they don't have enough cash reserves. So we want to make sure they've built up enough cash reserves. So it's important that you pay off the debt, but it's also just as important that you have emergency funds and cash reserves. And sometimes we run into that as well. But people that do have mortgages, it's just a matter of creating that cash flow to keep up with that mortgage. You know, are you going to keep that house in retirement? Are you going to downsize? Some people want to keep the house. Some people want to downsize it. It really, everybody's situation is different, which, you know, makes my job interesting. If everybody's situation was the same, my job would be very boring. And so it just depends on the situation. As long as we can create the cash flow to cover the debt, making sure that you have a decent rate, or if you don't, making sure that we can get you a decent, better rate, or how we explore those sorts of things, or is the plan to have the mortgage paid off before you retire? We'll look at those sorts of things through our planning process as well. So it's really looking at everything and just making making sure you have a plan and what the strategy is going to be going forward.
You're listening to Mark Silverman on Saving with Silverman. And Mark, tell us about a time when you helped someone put a retirement plan together, which also helped them get debt-free in the process.
Sure. We have a couple that we're working with right now, and they are about 6 to 7 years away from it today. He's retiring a year before she is. It's about 6 to 7 years they're both going to be retired. And so as we're running the numbers, they have a mortgage, and they were going to kind of keep the small mortgage because the kids are out of the house. And they don't have a lot of deductions, which most people don't in retirement. But we figured out a way, because of the cash flow, it made sense to try to pay it off. So we're actually taking and working the numbers for them and having them double up on their mortgage. So they're making an extra payment each month instead of it going into an account that they were going to be saving in, because they do have enough cash reserves and they have a decent amount of saved assets that they're going to be using in retirement. He has a pension, plus they both have Social Security and that sort of thing. But we're able to have the mortgage paid off by the time that she retires, which is about 7 years from now. And everything's going to work out just fine.
Sounds good. I know that there are other folks out there like that couple you were just talking about who could use some assistance in not only planning for their retirement, but getting debt-free in the process. What do you have to offer those folks?
So whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, just like we discussed, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to me with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is the Silverman & Associates number, 520-333-7601. Not only can you call that number, but you can also send a text to that number if you're more comfortable doing that. Just include your contact information. A member of Mark's team will get back with you first part of the week. You can arrange the time to come in for a conversation face-to-face with Mark about your situation. And when you do that, there's no obligation. It's not going to cost you a penny. 520-333-7601. You may decide you want to become a client, then again, you may not. 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. You can go to savingwithsilverman.com if you'd like to find out more about Mark's business. That is a really cool, I think, website address, savingwithsilverman.com. We'll be back with more of today's show after this quick timeout.
It's time to get to know Mark Silverman just a little bit better here on Saving with Silverman.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz, and this is our Getting to Know You segment. And Mark, really simple question for you today. What do you want your life to look like 10 years from now? Where do you see yourself?
Probably doing what I'm doing now. If I can just keep doing what I'm doing now, 10 years from now, I would be very satisfied. You know, nobody's life is perfect, but I'm thankful for where I am, what I have, and those sorts of things. So if, I guess, making sure that I have my health is probably the key.
Yeah.
So, with that being said,
that's pretty good. You can say that you're perfectly satisfied with the way things are now. And
there's
that
always some room for improvements
Sure.
on things, but generally speaking, I'm pretty satisfied with
Yeah.
the way things have gone.
Fantastic. Well, you'll be able to help a lot more people with their financial planning, I'm sure of that, and help a lot more people get set for retirement. Hey.
Exactly.
Good for
exactly.
you. That is our Getting to Know You segment on Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman. If you'd like to call or text, do so right now. You don't have to wait until the end of the show. Call 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call or text Mark Silverman, Certified Financial Planner Professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman & Associates, serving Tucson and all of southern Arizona. There's more coming up on today's edition of Saving with Silverman in just a moment.
Learn the path to a worry-free retirement. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. This is Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman, and we have the request line coming up just a moment here. Some great questions from some of our listeners. And again, your number to call if you'd like to get in touch with Mark Silverman's office, you can call 520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. You can arrange a time to come in and have a conversation with Mark Silverman about your situation at no obligation. Time for the request line, and some great questions, as always, have come in from our listeners. We first hear from Kevin and Marana. Kevin says, my employer said they're going to stop matching 401k contributions in a few months because they have to offset rising health insurance costs. If I'm not getting a match, should I just stop contributing to my 401k and save money someplace else?
Well, thanks for the question, Kevin. It's a great question. I would say I would still max out your 401k if possible, because the thing of it is you can put more money into a 401k than if you were doing it on your own. Let's say you had an IRA account. You're able to contribute a lot more on a tax-deferred basis, so you're getting a deduction on your current taxes. So I would keep matching. The only one you're going to hurt by not putting more money into it is yourself at the end of the day. So that is your money going in. It's not a great thing that they're not matching anymore. But the fact of the matter is you have a 401k, which you're still better off than if you didn't have a 401k. And like I said, you had to just set up an IRA on your own. You wouldn't be able to put nearly the amount of money, and you wouldn't have a match there either. So I would say max out your 401k as much as you can.
Okay, we have another question here from, this comes from Swarita. Annie wants to know, most of my 401k is invested in company stock. Do you think that's bad?
Well, Andy, that's a great question, and we run into this a lot, specifically with we get a lot of people that call in from Raytheon, and Raytheon stock has actually done quite well. It's hard to dispute that, but you don't want to have too much, all your eggs in one basket, if you will. If there's been situations where people put too much into company stock, and even though it's a good company because you're working for the company and you know the company well, you don't want to have too much money invested in that. Look at Enron, for example. Whoever thought that was going to happen? And so not saying that that's the kind of company that you work for, but you don't want to have too much in there because it's too much of a risk, especially if you're within 5 or 10 years of retirement. It could put you at jeopardy if something were to happen or the stock was volatile, whatever it might be. So we don't recommend having that much into company stock. You want to keep it at a certain percentage, depending on how far you are away from retirement. But you do want to have a diversified portfolio, and that's something we can help you with. Just give us a call. We'd be happy to have that conversation with you.
Okay, one more question on today's show, and this one comes from Beth, who lives in Tucson. Beth says, my IRA seems like it's bouncing up and down every single day, and the roller coaster is driving me crazy. Does that mean that it's time to get out of the market and invest in a different way?
I would not recommend getting out of the market completely. I don't know your situation, Beth, but depends on how much you are in the market. Are you invested in bonds, or you just or 100% into stocks? And which stocks do you own? Are you in mutual funds? Are you in ETFs? Are you in individual securities? It really just depends. I don't know if you're retired or still working. That would be important to know, but the risk should match your tolerance. So the amount of risk that you're taking, you should be comfortable understanding how much downside exposure that you have given your risk tolerance. And then you also want to look at your goals and objectives and making sure that those match up as well. And so my advice would be to understand the amount of risk that you're taking, and we're happy to go through that process with you, figuring out what your risk tolerance is and what your comfort level is. and figuring out how much risk you're currently taking based on what your current investments are, and then comparing that to what your comfort level is, and then also looking at your goals and making sure that all of those kind of coincide. And if they don't, letting you know that as well. So if you can't handle all the volatility, because it shouldn't be a lot of volatility, I mean, especially lately, the markets have done quite well. And they can't stay like this forever. We are due for some type of correction. I don't know if it's this year, next year, the year after, but we are due for something. This is the second longest bull market we've ever been in. And I know with our clients, we have this conversation all the time, and it's really, we want to participate in the upside, but we don't want to have all of our eggs in one basket, if you will, by taking too much risk, and we're kind of playing it safe, making sure that we're doing the right things in appropriate amount and not taking too many chances with the money. But it's, again, we need to know whether you're still working, retired, your risk preference, those sorts of things. But great question.
Mark, I know that we have gotten some great questions today, and you may have questions of your own you'd like to ask Mark Silverman. Best way to do that is by coming in and having a conversation, sitting down, a very casual conversation. Mark's willing to devote some time to you with no obligation and no cost whatsoever. So what have you got to lose? Even if you have an advisor now that you're working with, why not come get a second opinion from Mark Silverman? He's been doing this for a long time and has seen all kinds of different scenarios and would love to help you. Mark, if someone is willing to make that phone call right now and to come in and have a talk with you, what does that entail?
Sure, Ron. So I've answered a few questions, so now's my chance to ask you a question. So here's a simple question, and can you answer it honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I mean, I get it. I'm as much friends with so many of my clients, they become true friends over the many years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? I repeat, is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in a position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and income and diversification and risk and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews, but hopefully it's more frequently than that? Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If you are, if all of that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having these in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be surprised at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call or send us a text to 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Or check us out online at savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
And it's important to point out that when you call that number or text that number, then you're not obligating yourself to do anything. It's not going to cost you anything. You come in and have a conversation with Mark and then walk away if you choose to do so. But I think you'll choose to become a client, because Mark can help you just like he's helped so many other people. That number to call again is 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman is a certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson. And Mark, it's been a real pleasure today. I feel as if you've dispensed a lot of information to folks out there, and certainly a lot of those people are going to come in and have a conversation with you face to face.
Well, Ron, always happy to be here, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen, and hope you got some value from today. And remember, nothing happens until you make that call or send us that text.
I'm Ron Stutz, along with Mark Silverman of Silverman & Associates, and the name of the show is Saving with Silverman. Join us again next week for the next edition.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.